So, hello friends, Kuyan here, and today I'm going to react on Asian discrimination and racism for some reason. So, I'm actually very interested in this, like seeing how the tier list, who is the most racist and discriminatory, I guess, like Asian countries in this case. But I don't know why like Asian countries are like the main thing about this and not the other type of countries. Like, as I've heard, there's like a lot of racism when it comes to Europe, I guess some parts of like Central Asia and stuff, and like even, I wonder if there are a lot of Central Asians are going to be part of this video. But I'm pretty sure this is like the Asian, you know, the Southeast Asian and the East Asian and stuff. So I'm actually pretty interested about this, friends. You know, is your country the most racist? Is Philippines the most racist thing? Because I'm actually very confused that other Filipinos are actually racist towards like other Filipinos. So it's actually pretty confusing. Like a lot of like Northerners actually don't like Southerners. Like they actually don't like other Filipino countries. They're probably too foreign about the idea about it. So it's actually pretty funny that, whoa, this is actually like interesting racism. So yeah, friends, hopefully you can leave a subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can support me against this racism and stuff. So yeah, let's get right into this video, friends. Thank you for all your support.
Every country on Earth has some degree of discrimination.
Yo, what's up, bro?
Today, I will try to put this into perspective. I'm not ranking these based on how mean the people are, but rather based on efficiency. C tier is for the...
I wonder like where is Rice Degree came from, because this is from Rice Degree's video. I wonder where or what country he lived from, because he actually commented on one of my previous videos about like Filipino racism and stuff. So yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. So yeah.
amateurs. Countries where discrimination is hidden or accidental. S tier is for the professionals, where it's written into the laws. One country even managed to expel 15% of its own population and still mark...
Sometimes it's so funny when it comes to like racist and jokes and stuff. So yeah, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, racism is also not funny. A lot of like Filipinos are also like racist towards like black people here in the Philippines, unfortunately. But man, sometimes I enjoy like a good racist joke sometimes.
markets itself as the happiest place on earth. Stay for that one. Everyone loves Japan, so we're starting there. Look at the immaculate streets, all of the helpful strangers, but then you encounter the Japanese-only signs outside some clubs and bathhouses, especially in places like Tokyo and Osaka, places with more tourists than pigeons. But real discrimination happens with housing. In a 2017 Ministry of Justice survey, they found that nearly 4 in 10 foreigners were told no, you can't live here. The same survey found 25% were denied jobs.
Oh, that image is great, crazy.
For identical reasons. Japan doesn't only discriminate against foreigners, they themselves are also the victims. The Barakumin, Japan's invisible underclass, descendants of people who worked impure jobs centuries ago. On paper, this caste doesn't exist anymore, and since the 2016 Act, they've tried to reduce it more. But in practice, companies probably still hire detective agencies to check if job applicants have Barakumin ancestry. There is also no official law in Japan that bans racism or discrimination. They also don't have any human rights organizations. But remember that Japan is an island nation that was forcibly isolated for over 2 centuries during the Edo period. When you've been isolated for more than 200 years, opening up doesn't come naturally. And because of all of that, Japan sits in A tier. It's a country that discriminates through
Interesting. Very interesting.
absence, the laws that don't exist, the people who were never recognized.
This is why I actually love Switzerland and Japan. A lot of people always love Japan, but man, I love Switzerland. But I also love the Philippines. Like Philippines is just amazing, man. Like a lot of people that I love, except I guess for the Northerners, they're a little bit racist. Well, I'm not gonna let the racism inside me, you know, try to incorporate within me, you know. Like I still love country and stuff. Like I still love the people here. Amazing people, man. They're very jokeable. They're very caring. They're very like helpful. It's actually amazing like how much I love the Philippines and stuff. But also the country, like we've been through a lot, man. And like it's kind of cool like how much a lot of Filipinos are really family oriented too within our beliefs. So we're always within us together, you know, to always like help each other, hopefully.
Thailand, the land of smiles will smile at you until their face hurts.
I'm Lady Boy.
And behind every smile is a calculation. What can this foreigner provide? If you're a Western tourist, you're a wallet with legs, and the victim of dual pricing at temples and national parks. If you're not a tourist, it gets worse. Nearly 1 million Hill Tribe members are treated as outsiders in their own land, refused citizenship despite being native to the region, labeled drug peddlers and security threats. During Faxon's war on drugs in 2003, extrajudicial killing
Yeah, here in the Philippines too, we have like war on drugs and stuff. So that was also like very brutal that happened here in the Philippines.
specifically, the UN noticed, but Thailand didn't care. The Thai Malays in the south
Yeah, obviously because the UN never did anything. In fact, they actually did something worse, which actually like as I've heard in the past of the news about like Haiti, like man, EU no the I think it's the United Nations. Yeah, the United Nations in Haiti was disgusting, man. Like you can look it up, like what they did to the Haitian children. It's not good, man. No, it's not good.
are called kayak, foreigner, guest. Despite their kingdom being absorbed into Thailand in 1785, the southern insurgency has killed thousands. The government response has been documented as brutality. Thailand is the only Southeast Asian country never colonized. They didn't learn discrimination from Europeans. They developed it locally.
No, Thailand, no. That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Thailand, damn boy. Wow.
Thailand sits in A tier. The smile is real, and so is the hierarchy underneath it. And if you're thinking, wait, you're wrong about any of the countries, just let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Mongolia skipped the subtext entirely. Sagan calls. For those of you who don't speak Mongolian, here's a translation. White Swastika, an ultra-nationalist group that uses actual Nazi imagery, holds rallies, and specifically targets foreign men who date Mongolian women, especially Chinese men. Mongolia's entire national identity is built on one man, Genghis Khan, and some Mongolians have decided that the bloodline needs protecting. The hatred for China runs deep. During the 20th century, Soviet-aligned Mongolia watched Mao's purges kill tens of thousands of Mongolian intellectuals and monks across the border in Inner Mongolia. Mongolia lands in B tier. The discrimination is aggressive, sometimes violent, but it's not systematic. They at least have a law against discrimination, and not all Mongolians are Nazis.
Okay, interesting, very interesting, Mongolian. Okay, I can side with that. There's actually a beautiful thing about Mongolia too. They have like a lot of like, I think as I've heard, like, I think it was like goat milk. It's actually very interesting. Goat milk cheese. It's actually very interesting, like food and stuff there in Mongolia too. So very fascinating country. Like I also heard like how legendary like Genghis Khan was. It's actually very fascinating. Like that Genghis Khan was actually like just actually like a kind person. Well, kind of a kind person. He's brutal in his ways of war, but he's actually a very chill person. Actually, like he's kind of an introvert. He actually like I've heard like from his like stories and stuff. It's actually very fascinating how much he grows from the that unfortunately his father getting killed and his mother getting kidnapped. It's actually a very fascinating story about Genghis Khan, man.
The Philippines is the strangest case on the list.
Yeah, the Philippines is like weird because I always thought that we are always like family oriented in our beliefs, but there's actually some races out there.
They don't discriminate against you. They worship you. Thanks to 3 centuries of Spanish caste.
Yeah, we worship everyone, and especially the Americans.
The hierarchy, and 50 years of American Hollywood branding, they've internalized a simple rule: foreign equals better, at least for certain foreigners. But don't get too comfortable. The Philippines has walls. They're just built inward. Take the Great Wall. That's the local term for the invisible barrier around the Chinese Filipino community. It's a centuries-old defense.
No way! I thought we love Chinese. Yeah, well, here I guess we're really just different here in the south, man. In the north, they're built different in the north. In the south, we're probably those rednecks and stuff.
Crouch against a history of massacres and expulsions. You can do business.
Yeah, we've been through a lot too about that, and it's pretty brutal. Like our history is pretty. Even like other like politicians too are like pretty brutal against like our own people. Like I think the Marcos regime, even like Duterte, when it comes to like his war on drugs, it's kind of crazy like how a lot of Filipinos supports him. I don't support him personally. Even my parents like support like Duterte and stuff and his war on drugs. Like to me, it's like when I was young, I know this is not going to happen. I actually look at the science about war on drugs and stuff that I know that this will never work. And unfortunately, it's kind of crazy. This actually invert after like after every war on drugs, the drugs will actually increase for some reason. I actually like shocked about that the laws against that. Like even in America, where they try to like have a war against like I guess alcohol and stuff. Man, that didn't go so well for them. So yeah, the good thing really about this is really just medical in nature and really solving poverty as the main problem, because they are the ones that is causing a lot of this like drug problems, especially in America too, unfortunately.
Business with them, sure, but try to marry in without the right ancestry and you'll find out the Great Wall is very much alive in the Manila suburbs. Then there's the
It's only in the Manila suburb, because here in the Philippines we really just don't care pretty much. Like there's even like a lot of Muslims here, and I don't care pretty much. Except for my parents, they are a bit racist towards like Muslim and stuff. It's actually very interesting.
Moro divide. To many in the
Yeah.
north, the Muslim population feels like a security threat.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Add in the Highlanders, the indigenous groups
Yeah, the Highlanders. So it's actually very fascinating. Like they're in the really northern side of like the Philippines. There are actually like tribal people that still live like this. Even here in the Philippines, like in the south too. Well, I don't see them that pretty much, but I only like seeing pictures about. Because majority of the ways that we travel of my parents, we usually like travel towards like cities and roads and stuff. So not towards like this type of like native lands and stuff. That's actually pretty interesting to see a lot of this. But there's as I've heard too, there's a lot of like indigenous conflict, especially from the Muslim sides here in the Philippines. So there's actually like land territory and stuff, and like people actually like killing and stuff. It's actually very interesting. Like stories that I've been hearing about my father when it comes to his farm. You know, like there was actually one time where my father actually tried to protect like his friends from a land dispute from the things that from the farm that he's been working on, and he really like tried to like stop them from killing each other. Like he really like tried to shield them from the front of the gun of his former friend. Actually, that's really just how like sometimes there are conflict that does happen here in the south when it comes to these type of like native lands and stuff. So like land disputes. So yeah,
who are legally protected but socially invisible.
he's still alive though. Like I still love my dad. He still goes around like driving for my mom and try to I guess help me when it comes to my school and stuff. So yeah, shout out to my dad.
And you see the pattern. I'm going to put the Philippines in C tier. It's the
Oh shit, boy. Shit, boy. We're not that racist. Woo, thank you. We're not that racist. Thank God. But it's kind of weird because I do love racist jokes from time to time, man. Like when it comes to like Hitler jokes, those are like very funny. The KKK jokes, though the KKK is very like boring, especially the American side KKK. But when it comes to like I guess from the rebellions, from the American Civil War and comes to the South and stuff, those jokes are kind of funny. The very innocent jokes also are very very very, very funny. But yeah, PG will take it. Take it as a Filipino. I take it, man. We're seeing racism. Woo. We have low tier racism. Hell yeah.
soft zone. The discrimination is just trying to make sure everyone stays in their 16th century Spanish lane.
Yes, all Spanish are not good. Well, the previous Spanish. We still love the Spain right now, but in the past, those type of ancestor Spanish is not no bueno, man.
Vietnam creates a specific type of discrimination. The forgiveness transaction. They will smile at American tourists. They will subscribe to Rice Degree, take American
Oh, that's interesting. That's very
dollars,
interesting.
but everyone knows their past. For them, foreigners are seen through the lens of utility. If you're an overseas Vietnamese returning home, you're viewed as a trader who got rich. You're welcome to spend
What? What type of belief is that? Even here in the Philippines, we actually don't mind like like our fellow Filipinos, like working abroad. We actually have that type of culture, very common here in the Philippines. Like you're even encouraged, like it's even part of our culture for you to go in foreign lands and like work from the outside to like gain money for your family here in the Philippines. It's actually considered heroic to even work outside, to have this sacrifice for us like here in the Philippines. So it's like a very interesting belief, right? Like in Vietnam, it's like hearing that. It's like a very interesting like belief to have in that like a type of belief, like treating your fellow countrymen going outside to foreign lands as a traitor. That's actually very fascinating. Like this is why I love like learning like other countries and stuff. Like their beliefs are like so different. That's very fascinating.
your money, but don't you dare try to tell them how to run the country. But the real heat is reserved for the internal enemies. First, the Chinese Vietnamese, the Hoa. In 1978, barely 3 years after the American War ended, Vietnam turned on its own merchant class. They expelled roughly 450,000 ethnic Chinese. Then there are the
Wow.
Montagnards, the
That's actually crazy.
indigenous Christians of the Central Highlands. Because they sided with the Americans and the French, Hanoi has spent 50 years punishing them. They are the savages in the eyes of the state.
Wow, that's actually brutal. I didn't know that this happened in Vietnam actually after the wars and stuff. But yeah, it's actually very fascinating, like how this happened because I also heard that Vietnamese really don't like the Southern Vietnamese too when it comes to like in the past in the Vietnam War during the Americans sided with the South Vietnamese. They don't like the South Vietnamese in the past too. So I don't actually know what the conflict there too when it comes to the Vietnam War. The only thing that I learned about the Vietnam War is that Americans fighting when the trees are speaking Vietnamese. Those are like the funniest joke. But it's actually very fascinating too, like how because the American side in that war is just we just want to protect, I guess, democracy for we just want to protect against like communism trying to spread throughout Asia, and Vietnam was the example of that. Though I'm pretty sure if you kind of look at it as a way of things, it's actually a pretty unnecessary war. I don't know what they're trying to achieve there, but they're pretty just like paranoid for Vietnamese to Vietnam to fail to fall towards like communism and stuff. So it's actually still very interesting that they still fall in communism, and I guess their fear never really like propagate because parts of Asia are still like democratic till today. So it's really just a useless war, especially Afghanistan too. Like I don't know what what Americans were thinking about this type of wars. It's actually pretty sad, like how much a lot of like other Vietnamese actually suffer towards after like the Vietnam War and stuff. As I've heard too, there's a lot of like Shia Muslim actually been attacked too after like the Taliban take over from Afghanistan. It's actually very fascinating, like how much worse things that happen towards like the minority of a country after like these insurgents and stuff, eventually win from these type of wars. So it's actually very fascinating.
8. Living on land the government wants for coffee plantations. And we can't skip the North-South divide. The war ended in 1975, but the judgment didn't. Northerners view Southerners as lazy and corrupted by capitalism. Southerners view Northerners as rigid, brainwashed, and arrogant. The political power sits in Hanoi, the money sits in Saigon, and they talk about each other like they're different species. Vietnam sits in B tier. Most of it comes from past frictions.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Still, you can come in, you can spend, but you
But it's kind of weird, right? Like a lot of these like countries are like landlocked, but they're a lot more racist. But here in the Philippines, we're kind of a lot separated when it comes to islands. But we're kind of not racist towards each other, except for the Northerners, because they're more landlocked than the Southerners. I'm taking shots, okay? I'm taking shots when it comes to like racist Northerners out there. I'm not racist, I'm just like pointing out your racism out there. But I'm actually propagating racism when it comes to hitting the Northerners. Damn.
will never ever be one of them. Vietnam and the Philippines look good, like that. But we haven't had the worst ones yet. Wait until you see Bhutan.
Oh.
India doesn't
India.
have time.
Yeah, India is like, I've heard India and man, it's not pretty. Like I've heard horror stories about like women and stuff. Yeah.
Time to hate foreigners. They are too busy fighting a cold war with themselves, the system that officially doesn't exist anymore, and of which many of you in the comments will disagree. The hierarchy that legally ended in 1950.
It's kind of weird too. Like as I've heard, there's actually also like Indian war when it comes to like killing, I guess, leaders and stuff. Like especially what happened in Canada too. Like they're killing like leaders that's been like, I guess, supporting when it comes to the government in India and stuff. It's really very fascinating. Like India can actually like try to, I guess, hire assassins like outside world when it comes to the stuff and like this and this too. Like the caste system is actually very fascinating to hear too. It's actually very interesting, like how much their like beliefs, and it's actually very interesting beliefs like this. But yeah, I'm actually like very interested to learn more about this. And unfortunately, it does cause like a lot of divide when it comes to like the Indians and stuff. But I actually like met a lot of like Indians when it comes to like COC and games and stuff. Don't know why they love COC and stuff. There's like a lot of Indians in that game, so it's actually very interesting to join like clans that are Indian. Even like I think even like a lot of like online games too. So yeah, there's just like a lot of Indians love playing games, I guess.
When India's constitution outlawed caste discrimination, one part of that is manual scavenging, the practice of cleaning human waste by hand, entering sewers and septic tanks with no protection to remove excrement. It was banned in 2013. In 2018, government data identified 58,000 people still doing this work. Activists say the real number is far higher, Almost all of them are Dalits, the lowest caste. The city community adds another layer. Indians of African descent, brought as slaves by Arab and Portuguese traders, living in India for 500 years. They face discrimination so severe, most Indians don't even know they exist. When they do appear in the media, it's usually as a curiosity, rarely as Indians. To be fair, India isn't ignoring the problem. The government runs the world's largest quota.
Yeah, there's actually like a lot of like Negroes here in the Philippines. We call them Negroes, or sometimes we call them. Actually, forgot what we call them, but they have a name. They call the Igorots. Yeah, we call them the Igorots. As a kid, I always like joke a lot of them when it comes to kid because I didn't know any better about their their systems and stuff. And when it comes to like growing up right now, there's actually a very fascinating like you don't actually kind of discriminate a lot of like the Igorots and stuff or like the black like Filipinos and stuff as I've seen and heard. I don't I don't heard those type of stories, but I don't know. I wonder if there are like Igorots or like any type of black Filipinos out there. Do you still experience like discrimination and stuff here in the Philippines? Do you get hatred of the other Filipinos? Because as I've heard, Filipinos don't discriminate. They do make a lot of jokes against like black people or like times of like native and stuff. We always like jokes about like how they are, I guess, very old and stuff, and how they are don't wear some type of clothing and stuff. So that's actually like I'm fascinated about like seeing or hearing the sides of like black Filipinos here in the Philippines. Because that's the only thing that I've commonly heard about it.
System to force integration for the quote, socially and economically backward citizens. It's so extensive that people now argue it's become reverse discrimination. While other countries pretend their hierarchy doesn't exist, India is actively wrestling with theirs in the mud. Before I start with revealing the tier of India, let me know, which tier would you give India? I will say India is A tier. The discrimination is deeply embedded, but it's being contested. The reservation system and the fact that people argue about the caste system still even existing tells that. Maybe they will make it onto the B tier in the future.
Yes, under the water.
Sure.
Please help me.
Everyone loves Bali. But Bali isn't really Indonesia, it's the Hindu exception. The real Indonesia is a sprawling empire of 17,000 islands, held together by Javanese military power and a very fragile peace. And that peace has
It's actually very fascinating, like how much Indonesia have like wars and stuff, and even communists and stuff. It's actually very fascinating. And even recently, as I've heard, somewhere in the 2015s or somewhere in there, they actually have like a war on Papua New Guinea. It's actually very fascinating.
two massive cracks in it. The Chinese Indonesians make up about 3% of the population, but control a huge chunk of the private economy, and Indonesia never lets them forget it. Every time the economy crashes, the finger gets pointed at them. In 1998, during the Asian financial crisis, that resentment exploded. Mobs targeted Chinese neighborhoods in Jakarta. Today, things are calm, but it's a nervous calm. Many wealthy Chinese Indonesians still keep a go bag ready and money in Singapore, just in case. But if you want to see pure, unadulterated racism, go east. The indigenous people here are Melanesian, black, Christian, and culturally distinct from the rest.
Oh, it's actually very fascinating. They're even like Christian to begin with. But yeah, a lot of like Indonesians are also like, I'm pretty sure Indonesia is pretty diverse. Like there are like a lot of Chinese. There's also like a lot of Muslims there. It's actually very fascinating. Like very culturally diverse and especially, I guess, religiously diverse. Even when you go east too, like there's like a lot of like natives like this. But yeah, I actually heard like stories about this. Like they actually going to war against Indonesia. It's actually very fascinating. Like a very interesting like war that they've been like fighting against the natives and stuff. It's actually very fascinating.
Of the country. They are often called monkeys. That is a literal slur used by soldiers. The Indonesian military runs the region like an occupied territory. Indonesia spent 300 years fighting Dutch colonization, only to turn around and do the exact same thing to the Papuans.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Papuans, the Papua New Guinea, Papua New Guineans. They call Papua New Guineans. It's very, very interesting. But yeah, they're actually very fascinating. I never even heard this type of war actually.
Thank you. Titan has freed us.
Oh, I wouldn't say free. More like under new management.
However, it is wonderful that Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim nation and a massive
And I'm pretty surprised there's actually even Christians there.
democracy that manages to keep 1,300 ethnic groups from killing each other 99% of the time. I will put Indonesia in A tier. It's the powder keg. Most of the time, the discrimination is simmering under the
I'm pretty sure like Malaysia and Singapore, even Taiwan is here, maybe China even. So yeah, the list still goes on, you know.
surface. But when it blows, it burns down neighborhoods.
I didn't know that. There's actually also a recent news about Indonesia where Gen Z are like protesting from the streets when it comes to all of that after like someone getting killed by a police car, as I've heard. And they're trying to burn the parliament and stuff. It's actually kind of crazy, like this type of like newsman when it comes to Indonesia. Actually very fascinating. Fascinating country.
The migrant workers who built those shiny towers in Singapore live in dormitories far from the city
I really love that the rock picture about like
center. Bust in before sunrise, bust out after dark. Housed in facilities that made COVID spread like wildfire in 2020. Because social distancing is impossible when 12 men share a room, but you will never see them, and that's exactly the point. The minimum wages for domestic helpers in Singapore, but also in a city like Hong Kong, are higher than what these workers could earn at home.
this animation is just so sad, man, when it comes to like Mickey just slicing the bread.
Many send remittances that put siblings through college or even lift entire extended families out of poverty. But Singapore does categorize its own people with the CMIO model: Chinese, Malay, Indian, other. Every citizen is racially tagged by the state. This tag determines a lot, including where you can live. The ethnic integration policy dictates exactly how many Chinese, Malays, or Indians can live in a specific HDB housing block. The government says this prevents ghettos.
I'm just trying to get home. Please. Bro. Help! Yo, somebody!
Minorities say it prevents them from selling their apartments at market price
I love that cat, man. That's so cute, cat. Try to chase him.
because they can only sell to other minorities. Singapore is very safe. The government argues that these tight controls prevent the kind of racial riots you see in the West or Malaysia, and there is still debate about the CMIO model, indicating that it may not last forever.
Also, I just heard this, friends, that Singapore is actually like a very authoritarian state. So it's actually just one party controlling the entire nation. So yeah, it's just a very interesting like authoritarian state. So it's actually the weirdest authoritarian state that actually just works.
I almost put Singapore in S tier, but wait until you see what S tier actually looks like. Singapore
Okay.
is A tier, systematic in some
Okay.
sense, but not the worst. Not even
Yeah, Filipinos are just like chilling in the sea, man. Where sea equals chill, okay? Sea is equals chill, so you know. The good thing is like I don't even hear like in truthfulness, friends, I really just don't hear about this racism. Once I heard about like Filipino racism, even I was confused about it. Like I never really heard about it in my lifetime. When I was experiencing it, like after making the Filipino video, I was really surprised about it. Like I was actually having a cultural shock because I never experienced racism in the Philippines. It's that crazy like how I even like experienced it.
close.
And it's so confusing too. But it's also like truthfully, as I've seen on Twitter, Filipinos are actually kind of racist when it comes to like a lot of beauty standards and stuff, and even like products and stuff too. Like been encouraging to a lot of like TVs and shows and advertisement and stuff. There are a little bit racist about that. So yeah,
Now for the country that has
China.
been the villain in many other chapters. China. Most countries on this list discriminate against outsiders. China discriminates against its own blood. The hukou system.
Yeah, there's actually like a lot of like Chinese too from the northern side, well, especially the northeast, no, northwest side of the China stuff, because there's a lot of like Uyghurs and stuff out there that has been like I guess put on concentration camps by China. It's actually very interesting, like how they did that from the Uyghur population, and even like try to have like contraceptions from them. They really try to like extinct the Uyghur population in China. It's actually crazy.
Household registration that functions as an internal passport. If you're born in a rural village, you stay a villager in the eyes of the law. Even if you've spent 20 years in Shanghai building the skyline, your kids can't attend city schools, you can't access city hospitals, you're barred from buying property. An estimated 300 million migrant workers live like this. Building China's cities, banned from living in them. It's India's caste system with better record keeping, except that approximately 200 million people have escaped their registered region. Then there's Xinjiang. The UN estimates over 1 million Uyghurs have been detained in what China calls vocational education centers. Leaked government documents, the Xinjiang police files, showed detainees as young as 15 photographed with whole SWAT teams behind them. And for Han Chinese who step out of line, there's the social credit system. You will be
Yeah.
blacklisted from flights.
It's crazy like how their entire system is really like Orwellian state. Like as I've read or George Orwell's book, like my God, this is actually like worse than when I read like 1984 when it comes to George Orwell. It's actually crazy. Like I never seen this in my lifetime to have this as a reality, from an entire nation, like try to control the state, to control their citizen and try to like spy on you like everywhere you go. And not even that, if you are not spied on, you actually have a credit system to even like score how much you are valued in society. It's actually depressing, man. It's scary and crazy and creepy too.
From train tickets because your face is tracked across a network of 700 million surveillance cameras. But China is holding 1.4 billion people together across 56 ethnic groups, dozens
Yeah, it's still kind of crazy, like how much they really like try to like not make this country like explode on itself on how like different they are and how much surveillance they've been doing to their own citizens. It's actually crazy.
of languages and a landmass that spans
Yeah, and it's also there's a lot of like different type of languages. Like as I've heard, there's like southern parts of like China that actually speaks a lot different. And there's also like parts of like somewhere in the sea and stuff from China. Actually, like a lot of them like speak different, like vastly different type of like Chinese. It's actually very interesting. As I've seen, I think I've seen like a New Yorker. I think his name is like Xiao NYC. Like he also speak like multiple Chinese, multiple languages, type of Chinese languages.
deserts to tropical coastlines. The Communist Party watched the Soviet Union collapse into 15 pieces. They watched Yugoslavia tear itself apart. Aggressive cultural standardization might be the only thing preventing balkanization. That's of course no excuse, and China definitely sits S tier.
Interesting. I didn't know like they tried to they really just try to change the culture and really change the mind of their own citizen to really control the power within like the communist state, or the socialist state within China or the CCP, like pretty sure they're like like communists and stuff. But yeah, it's actually very fascinating, like how much they really held together like billions of people within their country. So yeah, it's very, very fascinating. Also, hey, congratulations, China. You're the exact opposite of us. Culture and stuff. So yeah.
Meanwhile, I have a question for you. What do you know about Bhutan? You could be thinking about
The only thing that I learned about Bhutan is that they're from the mountains. That's the only thing that I learned. I also learned like how much they. That's the only thing I learned. I learned that there are parts of the mountains there, and there's also like a lot of monks there, as I've heard. There's like a lot of ancient temples about Bhutan. Anything else that I've learned about Bhutan? I think that's the only thing that I learned about Bhutan. Not a lot that I've learned about it. I think. Yeah, I think I don't. I think I didn't like miss anything. So yeah,
gross
I didn't learn a lot about Bhutan. I'm actually very fascinated learning about it.
national happiness, hillsides of prayer flags, a country that's literally carbon negative and rightfully branded as the last Shangri-La, the place that says it cares more about how its people feel than how big the GDP number looks on a chart. Basically, every travel blogger's final boss destination. Here's what the branding left out. In the early 1990s, Bhutan expelled over 108,000 of its own citizens. It's hard to say how big their population was, but it is likely that the population was less than 1 million, and probably about 600,000. That's about 15% of everyone who lived there. Gone. The ethnic Nepalis who'd lived in southern Bhutan for generations, some for over a century. The government decided they weren't Bhutanese enough, didn't fit the Driglam Namja, the national policy of cultural purity that dictates everything from architecture to dress codes. So they stripped their citizenship, burned their houses, marched them to refugee camps in Nepal, where many still live today, 30 years later. One nation, one people. The happiest country on earth achieved that happiness by removing 15% of its population. But Bhutan is tiny. They're wedged between India and China, watching Tibet get absorbed, watching Sikkim get absorbed, watching every small Himalayan culture get swallowed by larger neighbors. The fear of cultural extinction is real. The Driglam Namja was a panic response. They were trying to preserve everything Bhutanese before it disappeared. That's of course no excuse, because over 100,000 people lost their homes, their citizenship, basically their entire lives. So after hearing this, you probably aren't surprised that Bhutan deserves an S tier.
Wow, that's very, very fascinating. I was actually very shocked about that. Also, I didn't know like how Bhutan like didn't get conquered by China. That's actually very interesting.
In most
Oh, I didn't know this. That's fascinating. Like Malaysia is part of this. I thought Malaysia is like B tier or C tier and stuff, but yeah, this is fascinating.
discrimination is a social problem. In Malaysia, you probably aren't surprised that Bhutan deserves
That's
an
very
S tier.
fascinating. That's very, very fascinating.
In most countries, discrimination is a social problem. In Malaysia, it's called Article 153. The Bumiputera system is written into the constitution since 1957. Ethnic Malays and indigenous peoples get discounted housing, ranging between 5 to 15% cheaper than what Chinese or Indian Malaysians pay for identical units.
Wow.
Additional bonuses include reserved spots in public universities, government job quotas, and business licenses. If you're Chinese Malaysian born in Malaysia, family there for 4 or 5 generations, you are legally a second-class citizen. But the system has a cost. According to World Bank data, nearly 2 million Malaysians live abroad. A disproportionate number are ethnic Chinese and Indian professionals escaping the quota system. They're leaving because Malaysia's constitution tells them they'll never fully belong. Singapore is the primary beneficiary of this brain drain. Every doctor, engineer, and entrepreneur who leaves is a loss. Malaysia chose to accept in exchange for ethnic hierarchy. And for everyone who speaks up, the red shirts will find you. Malay supremacist rallies that exist specifically to remind non-Malays who this country belongs to. When Malaysia gained independence, ethnic Chinese controlled most of the economy. Despite being a minority, ethnic Malays were largely poor, but politically very powerful. The 1969 race riots killed hundreds and traumatized the nation. The Bumiputra system was the compromise. Malays get economic advantages, Chinese get to keep their businesses. Everyone stops killing each other. It worked. Malaysia hasn't had major racial violence in over 50 years, though the question is whether a policy designed to address
I am speechless right now.
1969 inequalities still makes sense in 2026, when many Bumiputera are wealthy and many Chinese Malaysians are struggling. However, when discrimination is in your constitution, there's no debate about which tier you
I don't know if I should celebrate the S tier of Malaysia being so racist, or am I supporting Hitler in this case, or the KKK, or the southern, the southern part of like American Civil War and stuff. I don't actually know. Oh, they're the Confederates, yeah, the Confederate States of America, yeah. But if you don't know, friends, the Confederate States of America are also like racist and stuff. Like they really are pro-slavery, especially the time why the Civil War in America happened, because of like pro-slavery, which is the South, and the non-slavery, which is the North. That's usually like why they're on war in the past. But yeah, some of them were racist, man. In the past, that's why they actually have a war and stuff to fight against like non-racism and stuff. But yeah, wow. Very interesting. Very interesting. I was even shocked how violent that became from Malaysia when it comes to racism and stuff. Wow. I don't know if it's wow. I don't even know if it's understandable to have it, because they've been suffering by the well, it's not okay, okay. No, stop. You don't okay, I retract back everything I said. Okay, everything I said is bad. Racism is bad, of course. But it's actually very fascinating, like even Malaysia to have that type of rule, to have like racism to even include within their constitution and stuff. But yeah, wow, there's also like very violent in their past too. But it's actually kind of interesting too, because they've been suffering through the, I guess, tyranny of their government and stuff. But it's unfortunate that they've been like, even have like groups, also known as the red shirt. It's actually very fascinating that they have groups to fight against those type of stuff too. So it's actually very fascinating. Very, very fascinating.
belonging. Malaysia is S tier.
Also, I don't know why that China is always like shaking throughout this video. Oh, Koreans. Oh no. Interesting. Very interesting. Also, very interesting that South Korea too, till today, are struggling when it comes to their like fertility rate. It's actually very fascinating. Also, very fascinating that a lot of Filipinos really love like South Korean K dramas, K movies, like a lot of like Korean like culture and stuff. They actually like really love. Even like other like countries always love like Korea. Even like Malaysia or Indonesia, as I've heard, like really love Koreans for some reason. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they're a different breed, as this video shows.
One country looked at every form of discrimination on this list and said, why pick just one? South Korea went from dirt poor to richer than Japan in 30 years. Somewhere along the way, they decided that looking down on anyone poor was proof they'd made it. And here's how you know it's not about culture or race. North Korean defectors. They share the exact same DNA.
Yeah, it's actually very sad. Like a lot of North Korean defectors, as I've heard, there's actually like a lot of story. There's even like a YouTube channel that I follow that he actually escaped North Korea twice. So that's actually like a baller life that he lived. It's actually very sad, like how much he also suffered when he actually like escaped when he was young. It's actually very fascinating. I don't know what I actually forgot like what made him inspired to even defect North Korea to begin with. But yeah, there was even like one time he tried to cross the river and he was actually like spotted by the North Koreans and stuff. It's kind of fascinating that he even escaped to begin with. Oh yeah, I just remembered. He has a Chinese father. Yeah, he has a Chinese father that take him outside of North Korea. So that's why I think that's inspired him to go outside of North Korea. And it's actually a pretty brilliant like English speaker. It's actually very fascinating, like how this like North Korean defector tried to escape North Korea twice, by the way, and then tried to learn like speak English by watching Family Guy comedy. It's actually a very fascinating story. So it's actually pretty sad. Like I've heard like these stories that a lot of like North Koreans are actually try to off themselves because they have no life to live outside North Korea. Pretty sad.
Same language, same 5,000 years of history. They escape one of the most brutal regimes on Earth, expecting the South to welcome them. Instead, 1 in 5 reports direct discrimination. Their unemployment rate is double the national average. Their wages are 16% lower. Some train themselves to lose their accent just to survive. They literally erase their own voices to avoid being mocked, all just because they're poor and from a failed state. South Korea still has no anti-discrimination law. They've tried to pass one, but it keeps getting blocked.
Wow. That is very sad. I'm pretty sure you can see it too that they may be like afraid of like North Korean defectors, being like spies from the North Koreans. That's probably their fear and stuff. But man, that's just so sad. It's also kind of pretty baller, to be honest. I'm pretty sure if I was like a nation in North Korea, I'm pretty sure all North Korean defectors are like fucking heroes, man. Like they should be nationalized. Like how much because they suffered through a lot, even like escaping against like a authoritarian regime like that is still kind of crazy.
Mostly by Christian groups who worry it might protect LGBTQ plus rights. Because South Korea doesn't have any laws against discrimination and their stance towards people of their own DNA. South Korea
Here in the Philippines, we actually have a law, friends, that actually promote like indigenous communities and stuff. We actually have like laws of even supporting stuff. Even on my school, like I was pretty surprised that we actually like charges like other type of culture. Like even my teachers like dress this like their own type of like I guess indigenous like tribes and stuff. So it's actually very fascinating. Like there are cases of like Filipinos even try to even dance when it comes to their like indigenous like dances and stuff. We actually like very promotive of like indigenous cultures and stuff. So it's actually very fascinating. Like, I'm really happy to like see that on my school. Hopefully that's also like a rule when it comes to like the Philippines as a whole. There's also like rules, not rules, like laws and stuff that promotes like land from the indigenous tribes, and they have like protection from that. So it's really very fascinating. Like we have rules from that here in the Philippines. Even like seeing it within my school too. So yeah, net benefit, I guess. So I guess we're the least racist. Hell yeah. Yeah, so good to be a least racist here. I'm proud, man. I really have pride. I have pride over that. Like, I really, because I really believe, like, a lot of people in this world, like, we're all humans in the end of the day. I really love, like, learning a lot of cultures about people and even black people, man, from America, man. I love their rap. Like, their rapping, song writing stories, man. There's, like, a lot of cultures, a lot of, like, stories. I even love Kendrick Lamar and from his, like, stories of, like, I really love his album. I think it was like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I really love how psychological it was from his place, trying to grow himself as a person and growing from his addictions and stuff. I also love like J. Cole, man, his rapping is also very cool. But yeah, it's actually very fascinating, like how much culture and stuff from like all peoples, indigenous, or even like nationals and stuff, or even like even like black people from all around the world, or even white people for that matter. Like I also love like American cultures and stuff, or here in the Philippines too. So yeah, I really love a lot of humanity, man. I just love humanity as a whole.
Korea is placed in the S tier. I made a full
I still don't know like why China is still like shaking here.
South Korean discrimination. Links here if you want the deep dive. So there you have it. All countries ranked on the basis of their discrimination. I hope you were able to take it with a grain of salt. And like I said, if I was off, just let me know. Down below.
Oh hell yeah! Actually, I want to like read the comments and stuff about it. If there are like interesting racism about this. But yeah, friends, man, I actually took like 1 hour of just like watching this video. It's actually crazy, almost like a 1 hour. But yeah, friends. Oh, what do you think about the list? I'm actually very proud. Like we're at hopefully least racist. We even like have some laws against. We have some laws against anti-racism and stuff. I don't know if even America have like anti-racism laws. That's really very fascinating if that exists even. But yeah, friends. Hey, I'm very proud. But what do you think, friends? Like, what are within your own countries? Like, do you ever experience about this type of racism? Is this even true? You know, like I never even heard of this type of stories. The Malaysian one was actually insane. Like I never even heard that story about that story, man. It's actually very interesting. I commonly heard about Indonesia and stuff, and all of their like you know past and stuff about fighting the communist stuff, or even like the Chinese communists too. I think as I remember. But yeah, it's actually very very crazy. So yeah, friends, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you can leave some comments below to like help me not give me the enlighten me with your experience experience when it comes to racism, I guess. So yeah, friends, thank you for watching and good evening.